We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Free Association Radio. This is the Friday edition. This is the Friday FARcast. I am Robert Phoenix and you are you, and we are we, and we are all together. See how they run like pigs from a gun. See how they fly. Is it pigs from a gun? I'm crying. Yes, that is the Beatles. I didn't get into the Beatles when I was a kid. I'll share with you my Beatles experience as a child. I was living in New Jersey, and I was about 4 years old. In fact, I was 3, not 4 yet, because this is the Ed Sullivan Show. And the Beatles were making their American debut February 4th, 1964. And my parents grabbed me out of the living room. I was playing with something. I forget what it was. But I was disturbed that they got me out of what I was doing. And they brought me into their room where they had the TV. And look, it's the Beatles, it's the Beatles. And I looked at them and I said to myself, I don't like these guys. I don't trust them. And I swear to God, that was my first impression of the Beatles. It's right up there with Laurel and Hardy, who made me run for the hills. Laurel and Hardy freaked the shit out of me. I did not like those guys. However, I do have a fond Beatle memory, and this was a few years later when the movie Help came out. And I remember being at a movie theater and watching Help. And I enjoyed the music. And I was dancing. I got up out of my chair and I was dancing at the theater. And my mother was slightly embarrassed. Made me sit back down. One of those memories from childhood that play out in the story or the narrative of our lives. I think we all have them, these little cornerstone moments and memories that are prophetic to some extent. We all have them. They're there. If we look back in our lives, we can find really telling, revelatory experiences and moments at an early age. And they are the hyperscript for the life that is yet to be lived. Let's bring on one of our guests. Let's bring on Sarah Nash. Let's talk about this. Let's see if she has any memories from her childhood or youth, which were signposts for things that were yet to come. Hello, Sarah.
This isn't Sarah.
It's not.
No, this is Tessa. I couldn't get the sound again, so I'm listening on the phone.
Are we having sound issues today again?
Oh, Blog Talk has glitches.
Okay.
I have
You
memories, but I'm not your guest.
No, you're not, but you could be my guest until she comes. How's that sound?
Oh, sure.
This is Tessa, Dick. It looks like Sarah might be here.
Oh, good.
So hey, just real quickly, you didn't like the Beatles either, huh?
No, I like some of their songs here and there, but overall, they were a grunge group when they started out. You know, deliberately bad and as loud as possible, and that just turned me off.
And what were you into at the time?
Big band.
Big bands.
Benny Goodman, even Lawrence Welk.
Wow. That is a major generational rift from those guys to the Beatles. I can see. Well, the big band stuff was, it was nice music. It was well played, and
Yeah, I was 10 years old, and I didn't have control of the TV tuner.
I completely understand. Hey, so Tessa, I'm going to put you back on hold, and we're going to bring Sarah on. Thank you for being her stand-in for the last 3 or 4 minutes. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
All right. That's Tessa Dick, who was on our show a couple of weeks ago. Let's see if this is Sarah Nash. Hello?
It's me, and we're back.
Here we are. What's going on?
Well, that was a Mercury Retrograde dude. Actually, I was sitting here listening to you, and I was thinking to myself, did he want me to call at 10 or 10:30? Well, I will wait. I will wait for my invitation.
Well, I guess your invitation came in stages, so stage 2 came about 3 or 4 minutes ago, right?
Right, yeah. There you go.
Well, how's it going?
It is now. I got to tell you, I've been really seriously dealing with some dark night of the soul stuff. I have been really questioning my sanity. I've been questioning everything in my life, everything. I've really been seriously going through a monstrous change in my consciousness. And I sat back and I thought to myself, well, maybe I'm just super clinically insane. Maybe I have some sort of, I don't know if everybody knows the show United States of Terra with the woman who has multiple personality disorder, which they don't call MPD anymore, they call DID. And she sees and hears all these things, and then she becomes them, or something like that. Anyway, so I was having this, I was thinking to myself, I'm probably not psychic at all. I'm probably just really super intuitive, and regardless of the fact that I've done work for the FBI and the LAPD and with some phenomenal I don't know results, I just began thinking to myself, I'm none of this. None of this exists. None of this exists. And luckily for my husband, he's been sitting around listening to me talk and say woe is me for weeks now. And so every time something happened, I would question it. I would question it and question it and question it. And I didn't believe in anything, honestly. I didn't believe in anything. I didn't believe in any of my experiences, although I had a couple that, sort of like Edgar Cayce, I got nothing. I got nothing for you. So I was really stepping away from who I am and what I'm about and becoming incredibly skeptical, more skeptical. I'm skeptical anyways, but then last night I had an experience, and it's funny, ha-ha funny and funny not, but I stayed up very, very late, and I was watching Hemlock Grove, and my daughter turns me on to this stuff, and I hate her for that because I don't watch television too much. I watch things that I have the ability to just sit and absorb because I can't stand waiting week after week after week. But an entity came into my living room, and I could hear her, and she sounded sort of like a cross between Darth Vader and Gollum breathing. And I had told myself that the next time this happened, and it was really profound and in my face, I would stop everything and I would question, are you here? Are you sane? Are you seeing what you're really seeing? Does this really exist? Unfortunately, for myself in that moment, I treated it as I've treated it all my life, and I pointed in her direction with my remote control, and I said, not now, not now, no, I'm busy. Can't you see I'm watching a television show? And my dog got up, and she was staring at the place where this woman was, and I was like, go home, get out of here now, go. And so I continued watching my show, and then she came back in, and this time I thought, okay, I'm going to look at her. I don't want to look at her, but I'm going to look at her. I'm still not questioning myself. I'd still forgotten to put myself in that place where I question my sanity. And so I looked at her. I turned my head, and I looked at her, and she was horrific. I mean, she reminded me of the woman from The Ring, the girl from The Ring. She had long, stringy black hair hanging over her face. She looked like she'd been, drugged through some mud and some water. And my specialty is victims of violent crime and suicide anyways. And so this wasn't anything new to me. And I said, no, not now. I'm really, really busy. You got to go. Get out of here. Go. Beat it. And she turned around. I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny. Because here's the thing. All my life I've been a demon slayer. All my life I've just, seen things that other people, 14 people in the room all see this, and they run screaming in the opposite direction. And me, I'm like, no, not now. I'm busy. And it struck me as I went to bed. She did. She turned around and walked away and left me alone, and that was nice. And as I went to bed, my cat woke me up, and I sat up, and I was getting him out of my room, and it occurred to me that I'd had this experience, and I hadn't gone to that place where I began questioning who I am, what I'm about, what I see, what I feel, what I hear. And I started laughing because I was back. I felt that I was back. And I've been so disconnected and so unhappy for weeks and weeks and weeks now that I've just decided to embrace my insanity. And I was telling my husband this morning over coffee. I said, I'm happier when I'm crazy. And he's like, good for you, honey, you be crazy. And at that moment, I had this sound in my ear that I get, and I call these my downloads. And I hadn't had that in a while, and I was like, oh, God, download. And my husband started laughing, and he goes, well, you've been offline, so now you need to install 48 updates. And, please wait. Please wait. So that was my Halloween story. I saw a ghost.
Well, that's a good story.
And it's true.
I like it. In a lot of spiritual traditions, when you get to the point where you realize you don't know anything, that's when you're ready, right? I mean, that's really the beginning in a lot of ways.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I don't know what I am. I don't know what I am, or if I'm ready or not. But
I think that's a good place to be, actually. Because that's when the slate is clean. It's blank. It's a blank canvas, and a lot of our predispositions and a lot of our thoughts about how things should be become eradicated, and that's when some really interesting things can take place. Because a long time ago, my first spiritual teacher said to me that we really don't have anything to learn but unlearn. And the unlearning would lead to this place where we could find out, how the spiritual technology of our lives in the universe actually works. And we had to get rid of a lot
beautiful.
of our predispositions and ideas in order to do that. So I think you're in a good place. The challenging part, this is the tough part, is that you are somebody who has built their career on a particular style, a particular resume of work, certain modalities, and it's very much tied into your identity. And when you come to this place of confusion or doubt or unknowing, it can be really threatening on so many levels because of how the identities become intertwined with, your spiritual connection, your spiritual relationship, your spiritual knowledge, and the work that you do, being out there. And that is a tricky place to be, because once you come into this space and you say, I really don't know anything, then, what are the people who have been connected with you, who have been in association with you, for lack of a better term, follow you? What is the message that you're sending to them? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know anything all along. Just disregard everything I've said and move on with their lives. Or can it be something that is like very chironic, and very honest? And it's like, hey, I really don't know a whole lot more than you do either. But what I do know comes to me when it comes to me, and I'm in a place right now where there could be a lot more coming to me, but for now, I'm in receptive mode. I mean, I think what you're doing is actually very brave, and to come on here and talk about it takes a lot of courage, and I applaud you for that. And I think that the people who are connected to you and are part of your world will also get the same kind of permission for their own lives as well. So good for you, and take as long as you need to in order to allow whatever it is to emerge, if anything is to emerge at all.
And that's so important too, because there's so many changes happening within the White Light Express, and I just didn't know whether or not what I was hearing and seeing and feeling and experiencing was real. And because and thank you, by the way, thank you for being so kind, because it has been incredibly difficult. I have so much mail and so much that I've really been hiding under a rock, and I had previous clients that have been very, very, where are you? What are you doing? I need you. And quite honestly, I didn't feel that it was appropriate for me to continue forth if I didn't really have anything to give with regard to being honest. Yeah. And so I sort of just shut down, and I really hadn't been doing a lot on the White Light Express, and Avis, my co-founder and very best friend, was, sort of chomping at the bit there, because we have all these things that we need to either make happen or not make happen. And it was very, very frightening, because it's like, okay, I'm the unpsychic. I'm Sarah Nash, the unpsychic, and Carla McLaren is one of my mentors, and she's an emotional genius, and she sort of went through her own dark night of the soul, and she came out the other end saying none of it's real. Mm-hmm. And then my other mentor, Dr. Bolin, Jean Shinoda Bolin, who was really, really pivotal in my experience with regard to the Tao of synchronicity. She came out the other end going, it's all real. Everything is real. Mm-hmm. And the bottom line is Peter was telling me, my husband Peter was telling me, he said, there was a woman that I worked with in the past who was a broker, and she was one of those really avant-garde people who she was an excellent broker. She was probably one of the top 10 in this company that she worked for, and she just didn't dress the way everybody else did. She didn't come into work wearing a gray suit, and she didn't do all this other stuff, but she was still an excellent broker. And she said, coming to work and dressing like this and doing this isn't what makes me good. What makes me good is that I want to make people money, and a lot of it. And so he said to me, he goes, so essentially what I'm seeing you experiencing here, Sarah, is that you just, you didn't want to just walk around in the gray suit and say, I'm this, I'm that. You really wanted to know if you were this and that. It's not the suit. It's not the clothing. It's the integrity and the truth behind it. And so, I mean, it's oversimplifying it to some degree, but I just felt that it was wrong of me to not have a foundation of belief in what I was doing and saying. If I can't go around telling people, oh, Spirit, talk to me, make the table shake with my knee, That's not what I do. That's not what I'm about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just needed to know. I needed to know, and the weeks now, since I've come back from Burning Man, I've had this existential crisis. And, how do you raise the consciousness of humanity if your own foundation is a lack of consciousness? I mean, oh, God. Anyways, I'm back. Thanks for Halloween evening and my ghost.
Well,
and it was funny because it didn't even occur to me to say, are you real?
Yeah. Wow, well, that would be an interesting dialogue in that moment to have. Yeah, I mean, I think that like I said, I think it takes guts. I mean, we look at people that are these quote unquote spiritual teachers of our time, many of whom I have issues with for any number of reasons. But they will never, or rarely will they admit to the type of doubt. I think there is a book called The Cloud of Unknowing, which talks about this. It was by a Catholic mystic whose name escapes me now. But you'll never see Deepak Chopra tell people that he didn't really know anything. You'll never see Marianne Williamson say that. You'll never see Barbara Marx Hubbard say that. All these people have such deep investments in their ability to, quote unquote, help people or provide answers, and often at a very steep rate, that they cannot afford to have this kind of wrestle with their soul, which in my estimation makes them, in some ways less human. They're much more manufactured, and they're really kind of corporate fronts for their own agenda, really. And
not only that, it's funny that you should say that, because I am familiar with some of these people on a personal level, and I've looked at them, and one of those people I've had a very intense conversation with recently, and I just said, I just don't know if I can go forward with this. And I have stepped away. I was given one hell of a deal here very recently, and I'm sure she's listening right now. But I was offered a one of those situations where you'd sort of be crazy not to accept it, and I didn't. And I haven't, and I've stepped away from that. I was given a media gig that is huge, and I sat back with Peter and I said, I just don't want to be micromanaged. I don't want to be told what to do and where to go and how many books I need to write and when they need to be written and how it's going to happen. And so I just a few days ago I declined their offer, and I said I'm not stepping on board, because one of these people that I know of who is out there and doing this, she's incredibly unhappy. On a very personal level, she is miserable. And I did not want to be like that. And so it's funny that you should talk about a book, because today is the first day of the NaNoWriMo. And I'm actually going to write my book this month, and I know what it's about, and I'm going to lay it all out there. I'm going to put everything in there, from the beginning, the middle, to the end. And it's odd because, here's the ending for you. On Halloween of 2013, I decided to go ahead and dive into my clinical insanity, or not, and just accept the fact that I'm psychic as fuck, and I can't stop it. I can't explain it. I can't go on James Randi's show or whatever that dude's name is and lay it all out, but I don't know how I know things. I can't explain it. Some of it I can explain away. In fact, a lot of it I can explain away. But I know I know things about people. I know things that I shouldn't know. And I got nothing for you. I can't explain it. So maybe science will be able to, disclose some sort of chemical reaction that happens and our DNA picks up images. Maybe that's what it is. But for now, all I need to know is that I walk into the room and I flip on the light switch. I'm not going to stand there and stare at the wiring in the walls and try to explain to myself every single time when I walk into a room why the light comes on. I mean, that's just counterproductive. So I'm going to embrace who and what I am and the gifts that I have. Some people can write symphonies, some people can paint amazing, the Sistine Chapel, some people can do brain surgery. I'm a psychic. And for lack of a better term, I guess that's, spiritual intuitive life coach. No, I really don't want to hang out with people that much. But I can help you get from point A to point B, and I don't know how, and that's okay. For now, I don't need to know how. For now, I need to know that it is a gift, and I can't walk away from it because I became miserable as I walked away from it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now I feel better. I feel more connected. In the evenings, over the last couple of weeks, I've noticed that I've been getting more and more maudlin and unhappy and less dialed in. And I woke up this morning feeling like $1 million. So, yay, I'm embracing my insanity.
Mm-hmm.
Bring it on. I don't know how the light comes on. It does, though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Let me see. So you have all that Gemini in the 11th house, and you've got and you have Cancer in the 12th and Leo on the ascendant, right? Your Leo rising.
Exactly, and I've got a Scorpio moon.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that would put Pluto going through your 6th house right now, right? In Capricorn?
Yes.
So that's about your work, right? That's about your purpose. That's about your service. That's about healing. And, what I know about Pluto is it brings you into these intense encounters of kind of endings and beginnings, life and death. And so that would be kind of par for the course, that you'd be, going through this sort of cycle, where, and this will probably not be the last time with Pluto through your 6th house. You'll be dealing with this. But, every time you go, you tend to come out a little stronger on the back end. And a little more focused, and it's how it works. It's the rhythm of Pluto. It feels like things are just going to fall apart, and then somehow, some way,
it does. It feels like a little death. And Pluto being the god of the underworld, I really feel like there was a huge part of me that was dying. It felt like death. And I've been going through some health issues again.
Mm-hmm.
Some issues with regard to being diagnosed with some sort of lymphatic disease, and I'm not embracing it. I'm stepping away from that, and I'm going, okay, I'm not going to succumb to that.
Mm-hmm.
You can try and take me out, but I'm not going with you. And so I think the best thing for me to do at this point is just to embrace my gift. Stop questioning it and the validity of it, because I have helped people. And here's the bottom line. Does it matter what the package is as long as people are being helped? And this is my issue. I want to help people.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I don't know. You get into the sort of speculative realm of nature And that's a much longer discussion, I think. That we have
Oh, yeah. I mean, because then, the ethics come in, situational ethics and morality and, is this right and is this wrong? But the bottom line, and at the end of the day, are you helping people? If you're helping people, okay. If you're taking advantage of and using and abusing people for some capitalist endeavor, no, that's wrong. And to say what's right and what's wrong, boom,
I mean, I think,
that's been...
Getting into, sort of much bigger philosophical questions, but one could ultimately say that if you are abusing people for a capitalistic gain, let's say you're charging somebody $300 a session to do a clearing, and that is actually a very ineffective thing in their lives, then maybe the best thing that could have happened to that person was to realize that they could have spent $300 on that clearing on chiropractic or acupuncture or some form of, direct nutritional response to their issues versus having somebody, play woo-woo on the back end. And maybe that's what they needed to learn and understand. So maybe that ripping them off was actually in their highest good. I mean, we're getting into, all kinds of, potential sort of nodes with stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Maybe the best thing that I could do to somebody is to give them an astrological reading where they feel like it's shit, and then they move on and they figure out things for themselves. I don't know. I don't think we have the ability at times to understand at a certain level how these things can get played out. But I hear where you're coming from. Let me just share with you a little story that happened to me when I was in my early 20s, and maybe this will have some resonance for you. But I just come back from Findhorn, and I was so into Findhorn, and I was so into Alice Bailey, and and I was having all these crazy experiences, right? And a lot of them were just projections, ideological projections for me. And I went up at that time. I was out of work. I was living with my parents, and I had just done this job where I was like doing plantscaping in all these office buildings, and I got really good at it. And as soon as I got good at it, they let me go because of a budget thing. So I'm sitting around trying to figure out what the next thing to do is. I went on a camping trip with a buddy of mine, and we went away for the weekend. And this guy had the amazing capacity to be quiet. It was interesting to be around for 72 hours, somebody who can just be silent. And in that silence, a lot emerged for me. And I realized that at that point in time in my life, I was a complete phony, that none of the stuff that I was into really mattered. Was it helping my life get better? I could just see how superficial my experience was with all the stuff that I was going through. And I remember getting up that morning it was the Monday morning after this weekend trip, and I meditated and prayed, and I said, look, man, I got nothing. Just like I have nothing.
Yeah.
I have nothing. I don't know what to do. Just show me what to do. Just show me what to do. And literally within 20 minutes after that, I got up, I went down to the post office to get my mail with my father, and there was a sign on the post office door, and this was on the coast of California, and it said hiring rural route relief carrier. I'm like, that's it. I'm going to go apply for this job right here at the post office, right? I mean, it was a sign. And it was a sign. It was like right there. And
you're so much sexier than Kevin Costner, too.
I filled out the application. It's the only job in the Postal Service that you do not have to go and take a test for. They were immediately able to hire me pretty much on the spot. And the woman who had that job went on maternity leave, and then she left. I had this job. I drove around in my car by the ocean, dropped off mail, had lunch by the ocean. Best job, one of the best jobs I ever had. I'd get off at 3:30. I'd go run on the beach with my dog. It was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. And it was nothing that I would have planned. And here I felt like I'd emptied myself to the point where I was able to receive at a very pure level whatever it is I needed to do. And there it was. It was right there at that post office. So the only reason I'm sharing that is because I think that that's where it's at. That in those moments where you just don't know what the fuck to do, you just give it up. You just surrender.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. But see, therein, here's the rub too. It's like you asked for a sign. You asked for some sort of synchronistic event to step in and offer you that sense of purpose and meaning. That it's odd, these little doorways that we go through. And I haven't just stepped through a doorway. I went through some seriously long, Lincoln Tunnel of serious doubt and pain and questioning. I mean, I questioned everything. I questioned the validity of Christ. I questioned the validity of God, of the nature of light, of what I was seeing, and the nature of humanity. Mm-hmm. And having fallen in love with humans after being at Burning Man and thinking, oh my God, we do have there's hope. Mm-hmm. To turn around and say, okay, what about you, Sarah? What are you made of? What is real about you? And to really just, oh my God. But I'm back. I feel happier. And I'm ready to embrace my insanity and say, okay, the bottom line is, am I helping people? And that's going to be my first question from now on. So at least I have the foundation and a basis where I can look at it and say, is what I'm doing completely and utterly selfish, or is there some more altruistic nature behind it with regard to raising the consciousness of humanity, giving people something to believe in, whether it's a rock or a crystal or a tree. At least I have a foundation. I can say, if this is helping someone, then go forward. If it's not, stop.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. I think it's a really great barometer to have with your life and with other people that are part of your network, and I applaud you. So
this Mercury Retrograde has kicked my ass.
Well, that's part of Mercury Retrograde, is to go back and re-examine what you're doing, right, on some level. So, and the other thing about Pluto and Capricorn right now is that Pluto, Capricorn is culture and time. And when Pluto comes into Capricorn, we feel the end or the collapse of culture and time. And those things have, an interpenetrating impact on each of us in our own lives. So it's not just the collective, but it's the collective as it trickles down to all of us. So we experience that on a personal level as well.
Well, I'm really glad to be on this ride with you. You're one of the true and the real. Oh my God, just stay the course. I believe in you. I believe in what you say and what you do, and step by step, we're going to take over the world. We'll bring them into the light, kicking and screaming. Yeah,
I mean, I just think that and I was thinking about, and I'll leave this with you. I'll leave you with this, and we'll move on to the Take Visible session here. But I really, the past couple days and maybe even weeks, I've just been thinking about how we need more poetry in life. We need more beauty. And I think that ultimately, if we can hold the space, and whether it's a beautiful space or space for a beautiful life with ourselves and another person, or more poetic existence, I think really that's kind of where it's at, because we've lost touch with poetry. We've lost touch with a sense of the sacred and the grandeur of the human experience. It's becoming completely sort of marginalized and desecrated and trivialized to a large extent. And and if I can somehow transmit some of that, what I'm doing, then then I think we're doing okay. Or at least I'm doing okay. So, hey,
I think we're doing okay, and I think that's an excellent foundation. So, I'm excited to listen to the rest of your show, because man, years and years and years ago, I was driving through the desert and I was listening to Art Bell and Benjamin Crumb. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah, well, Creme, it's an interesting little dialogue. So, listen, Sarah, take care of yourself. I mean that in the true sense of the word. And let's catch up in 30 days, and let's touch base on your cloud of unknowing and see how that's going, all right?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Love you, man.
Love you
Bye
too.
now.
Sarah Nash, the Cosmic Hooker, CosmicTriage.com. All right. So, another interesting character on the bus. We're all on the bus, right? We're all on the bus together. Our friend Less Visible. I caught up with him yesterday, and we talked about a lot of things, including Russell Brand and Benjamin Creme and various other sundry items and topics. And of course, he has plenty to say about all of the above. So let us waste no further time. This is me invisible, and I think that I've got about 5 different recordings of Visible on here in my Blog Talk catalog of tracks and audio. Let's hope it's this one from yesterday, Halloween. Me and our friend Less Visible. Here we go. Well, it's Halloween. By the time you're listening to this, it'll be the day after Halloween, but it's currently Halloween, and I can't think of a more appropriate day in some ways to speak with and reconnect with our good friend, Mr. Apocalypse himself, Less Visible. How are you, Viz?
I'm fine, sir.
Good. So, what's happening over there in your part of the world?
I'm speaking to you, as a matter of fact. Other than that, I really don't know what to tell you. Things are very pristine and well-behaved in Europe as compared to when I hear about the United States.
Yeah, it feels like the States are it's kind of ragged. I get these dispatches from people every now and then about strange things happening. Like I was talking to a mutual friend of ours last night in Pennsylvania, and she was talking about this flurry of fighter jets, small fighter jets, just racing through the sky, headed towards Virginia, the Washington, D.C. area. We get these random reports sometimes of just, crazy, anomalous things popping up like that. And, of course, there's always this specter of something, imminently about to go wrong or fail. I don't know if you heard about this, but did you track this whole thing? It was supposed to go down in October, around the middle part of October. There was this nuclear warhead that had gone missing, and it went from El Paso, and they found this thing in South Carolina with no bill of lading. There's no record.
And Creme country.
Yeah. Now, did you hear about this? And apparently, this was supposed to be the October surprise, and people are speculating that I believe it was Columbia, South Carolina, which is interesting, was going to be the epicenter of this bomb going off, and it was stopped by the military, and this was going to be a major kind of coup moment. And apparently, Obama and his family were in the beneath the White House in a bunker, and all kinds of shit was supposed to go down, and it didn't. And immediately after that, Obama started firing more generals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was just going to mention.
Did you hear?
Exactly what happened.
Yeah. Wow. What's the make of this, Wes?
What I make of it, as I do with most things, but now I would have to say it is the primary, prominent truth that maybe most of us aren't seeing, but that all of us are dealing with, whether consciously or unconsciously, and that is the active hand of the cosmos. The active hand of the cosmos is working now. My transmissions, which people can believe or not believe, tend to move from one series of messages to another. And one of the more recent series of messages I've been receiving is, I am here now. I am here. This very moment, I am here now, and I am active. I am at work. In the past, I have been passive. I have operated through various entities here and there for particular reasons. But now, I am here. I am much here, and keep your eyes open. Watch, look, and see. When something doesn't make sense, I'm there.
Well, it's interesting because over the past few years, as I've been reading you and tapping into, your wisdom channel there, one of the things that has consistently come through and emerge is this kind of dialogue, this kind of narrative, that there is this kind of imminent sort of sense, or this imminent kind of action that is about to or going to take place. And and I think one of the things that it's done is it's given people a sense of hope or something positive to latch onto. And I'm thinking that you are on the money with this, and it's been happening all along. But this is an event now that's come really close to the surface.
There are so many things that have almost happened that didn't happen, that we have not heard about. But there is a tremendous tug of war, this I've been told, going on behind the scenes between various factions of evil. And this is one of the ways in which evil destroys itself. It eventually, where there used to be an alliance going on between many of them with their long-term goals, now they're in a short-term window, and because they are overwhelmed with negative emotions such as greed, impatience, and all the rest of these things, they're starting to break apart and go to the primacy of their own agenda, which, in fact, conflicts with other agendas, even though, they may still work to their, in bringing chaos and all the rest of this kind of thing. But they are now trying to circumvent and in certain cases opposing one another, and this is causing all kinds of problems back there because no one knows who to trust anymore. And on the verge of all this, or rather let us say there is something on the verge in this moment of whistleblowing just going wild, of people jumping ship,
Well, we seem to have lost Mr. Viz there.
The place, and that's what's going on behind the scenes. So.
Well, it's funny. You just dropped out for a moment there, so that's okay. We got the gist of that. You're right, because as we get into endgame, right, as everything's been kind of lined up, and you've got these different factions. They sit back and they look at one another and they say to themselves, well, I want to be on the top of the pyramid when we get there, right? And so you guys got to get out of the way. And they look over across the other guys like, I want to get to the top pyramid when I get there. So I think you're absolutely right. This endgame scenario is bringing out their infighting and their mistrust of one another.
Absolutely. And that's why I say a lot of things that could have happened have not happened yet. And in some ways, see, there's that phrase in the Bible that says, all things work toward good for them who love the Lord. And what that means is even evil, all the plans and directives and intentions of evil are all actually working for good. In the short-term appearance of it, this seems implausible or not correct. However, from point A to B to C to D, if you look at the streams and the way they go, they constantly cycle back to doing something that is the antithesis of the intentions of people practicing it, but very much works in favor of the common good.
It's really funny that you mentioned that, because one of the people that I've been talking about recently is Valerie Jarrett, who is the Lady Macbeth of the White House, right? That's who she is. And
I love that.
And Jarrett was born in Iran, right? She was born in Iran. And she happens to be, I believe, a Muslim Marxist. And Obama was brought to power, and everybody in his cabinet was brought to power by people like Sidney Adelson and Penny Pritzker, and these kind of really wealthy neoliberal factions out of Chicago, the Chicago school, so to speak. And one of the things that Obama has said is off the table is going after Iran. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that that's where Valerie Jarrett was born. That's the place of her blood, right? I mean, that's where she's from. And now what you have, and this is where it gets crazy, this is where, these kinds of, counter-opposing forces work against one another. Now you have Saudi Arabia, who's very upset at the Obama administration for, not taking on Iran, and now they're aligning with Israel around this whole thing. And so you have these seemingly strange bedfellows. But if you go back far enough, you'll see that there are very strong blood ties from the House of Saud.
In the Israelis, sure.
Absolutely, to Israel. And so, but it now is coming to the surface that these two countries, which theoretically would be opposed towards one another, are really showing their alliance, and it's showing their alliance in a way that it would have been inconceivable had Valerie Jarrett had not, been able to take up residence inside the White House. It's stuff like this, right? It's crazy.
Mr. Apocalypse is causing all this to be revealed. We are in the apocalypse. People hear this and they nod their head and go, yeah, okay, it looks like that out there, yeah, kind of. But what people seldom do, because they have this cognitive disconnect, is they don't directly connect to the reality that, yes, this is actually happening right now in front of us. And so it is. And one of the things, this is part of their long-term intention, Israel's going to be destroyed. And it's going to be destroyed with the permission of those who ostensibly are the ones that are supposed to defend it. But it's going to be destroyed in order to generate enormous sympathy for those who, are disappeared. And then they can start the same bullshit scenario they've had going on all over again, all right? And this is their intention, to sacrifice a certain aspect in order to pump up the PR for the other aspect. At the same time, it will allow them to go crazy on certain countries with, big weapons. Now, sorry, I was cut off in my head. So, over to you.
No, well, I think that's, by the way, you said a weird psychic moment there. I think that the story that I've heard, or the scenario as to how that would go down, would be that Jerusalem would be sacrificed. And by doing so, you would eliminate any kind of pressure to rebuild Solomon's temple, because right now there's a mosque over Solomon's temple, right? I mean,
exactly.
So you can't rebuild the temple if the mosque is there. So then you wipe out the mosque, you wipe out any other vestiges of old school Judaica or old school Christianity, and then you start afresh, right? And that's when you get to rebuild the temple. And so I could see something like that occurring, but that was actually, I think, supposed to occur about 2 to 2.5 years ago, and for whatever reason, that's not taken place. And I think it's this, and it's funny because we don't see this stuff. We don't know how many times, just like you were speaking of earlier, how many times things go south, or things don't work, or some guy misses a train at an important moment, or a phone call gets dropped, or whatever these little tiny bits of real chaos are. We don't get to see that. Yeah, we don't see that stuff, and what we do see is we see the horror porn or the fear porn, but we don't see the behind the scenes stuff, which I think you're tapping into all the time.
This is well, as far as that goes, the jury's out on that. But this is true. The real game is going on behind the scenes, and just from what I'm picking up, it is tense. I mean, it is smoking back there. And I mean, see, here's another thing. The Avatar is coming. The Avatar's already here. And as the Avatar, as I've tried to explain many times in my blogs, as the Avatar descends down the plains from the highest, from the seat of God down into the manifest realm. He comes with a broom, and he sweeps out all of the other planes. And on one of the planes, the astral and the lower astral, there are these entities that have been there for, many lifetimes. And they broadcast and beam out negative information, energy, and what have you into those individuals who are basically they're robots here on this planet. Very powerful, very wealthy people, Satanists, different individuals. But as the avatar comes down and sweeps these people out as a prelude to this golden age that is coming, they're cut off from their sources of intelligence and also from that reassuring personality that was always there in the back of their head. And now that snake is left. And so they don't quite know what to do. I think as far as the Moss goes, I think that's how it is called, all of these things are like metaphors or symbols in a way, They're representative of their main concern, which is history revisionism. Historical revisionism is the number one concern, because those who can control history can control the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they would certainly bank on history, or whatever history they help create, in order to determine their future. I completely agree with that. What do you think of, a little off topic here, but maybe not so much, what do you think of Russell Brand? Are you following this whole Russell Brand thing?
Okay, yeah, I am. He's a bit glib, and he's got a certain amount of glad-handing going on with him. And when he uses words like lachrymose, that trips me out. He's a very funny guy. And I've seen a number of his movies. He's a very intelligent, very articulate guy, and God uses what's available. This is something we have to keep in mind. God uses whoever makes themselves available, and he often uses idiots like me, or people with unusual reputations, people that don't make sense in terms of, like, why would God pick him? Why doesn't he pick this upright, whining sepulcher over here, And so I think that, he's doing God's work, whether he knows this or not. And he's causing a bit of a storm out there. But, they're marginalizing him. They're doing what they can in that respect. But on the whole, he's an actor, okay? But on the whole, I think his heart is in the right place. And, I'm pretty sure of that. And he's saying all the right things. And he's saying them very well. And all of these people that want to mess with him, you must have seen the recent interview with him and that alcoholic guy, the older guy.
Paxman.
Who looked like his face was completely pickled.
Yeah, Paxman.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, see, they aren't able to shoot him down. See, they're not able to get around him. He's highly intelligent. And so he sees them coming. And so, as is the case with many of these spokespeople these days, have you noticed how many of the other side is getting gunned down now, Because the righteousness and the truth force in these individuals is just so much greater than the deniability on their part. And also it's gotten so outrageous and unbelievable anymore that, the general public, the force of the general public in respect to disbelief concerning the media, people running it, and all the rest of it is very great. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a bit of a different take on him and a different view on him. And it's probably more on the contrarian tip, because I've been tracking him, and I've been getting into his chart fairly deeply, and I'm trying to crack the Russell Brand code here. And
the Russell Brand.
Yes, the Russell Brand, and I'm trying to do it in a way that's fair, right?
Yeah.
Fair and balanced. I'm the new Fox News here, or the new Fox News, and so I am a little suspicious of his connections, number one, and number two, his relationship. Well, first of all, he had this relationship for 2 years with Katy Perry.
Katy Perry, yeah, I wondered about that. She's
Well, she's an MK Ultra kitten is what she is.
Right, that too.
And her father comes out of this weird, revivalist, pop culture kind of Christianity. He claims that he is a prophet, God's chosen prophet for the end times.
Anyone who claims they're a prophet is not.
And then they tried to make her out to be the next Amy Grant, and Amy Grant has been tied to kind of a satanic sect of Christians that hang out in Christianity, right? So then she goes on to do this strange, pro-war video in one of her songs. And then there's this
the guns and shit in it.
Yeah, and then there's this really weird moments where Russell Brand and Katy Perry are on stage. They're on the red carpet together. I think it was for the Grammys or one of these shows in L.A. And he has this. Do you know who Shepard Fairey is?
No, I don't.
Shepard Fairey is this artist. He's the guy that did the portrait for Obama. The one that everybody knows, that kind of the sort of the illustration, the red and the blue. You know that face, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's Shepard Fairey, but he's also the guy that created that obey graphic, right?
Oh, right.
So there's this moment on the red carpet, and Katy Perry is with Russell Brand, and Russell Brand starts flashing this obey thing that's attached to his belt in the direction of Katy Perry. And there's also a pentagram next to the obey.
Diamond flash or something else? Did he make a diamond out of the sand?
No, it's like an actual little placard he's got attached to his belt.
Oh.
And so he has this thing, and it says obey, and then there's a pentagram next to it. And all of a sudden, Katy Perry goes into this weird kind of ditzy trance. I mean, it is really bizarre. So there's that connection. And then he moves on to, very quickly, Zooey Deschanel, who is almost a carbon copy of Katy Perry, very strange. And then he moves on to Alessandra Balaz, and she is the daughter of he's a hotelier. I think his name is Alexander Balaz, and he's a member.
Was this the one who bought Spellman's house in Los Angeles? He's got tons and tons of money.
Yeah, that's him. That's him. Yes.
Yeah. He's giving her all kinds of money, right?
Yeah, that's right. And she happens to be Chelsea Handler's stepdaughter. Handler, a very interesting name. So anyway, he was also a member of the Quill. He's a member of the Quill and Dagger, which is Cornell's version of the Skull and Bones. He's with her, and she looks like a kid. And so he's with her. And then quickly he moves on from her and starts dating Jemima Goldsmith. Now, Jemima Goldsmith she comes from, speaking of Israel, she comes from Solomonic bloodline. She belongs to the house of Levi, and her grandfather is the guy that created the Hotel King David, and that's where the bombing is. And their bloodline goes way back. And her grandfather's grandfather was, I believe, the advisor to the Archduke of Tuscany. And this is where they get their titles. And Jimmy Goldsmith, her father, noted playboy, uber capitalist robber baron, married his mistress, and that is the Jemima Goldsmith's mother. Yeah, well, that's where they made a lot of the money, was in gold mines and diamonds as well. So here's Brand basically stepping up with every single relationship and getting into these power these power groupings, and you go back into the Goldsmith bloodline, and you can see the Barracks, you can see the Amschels, Meyer Amschels, you can see they're all hanging out there, right? It's a major bloodline. Anyway, that's who he's palling around with now. So I for one, am just slightly suspicious.
Okay, well, I would be more than slightly suspicious at this point. See, you just, this is one of the reasons I say I don't know. And if I haven't said it in the program, and I haven't yet, let me say it again, I don't know. And you have just turned me on to, well, I didn't know any of that. I don't know who Jemima Goldsmith is, or, see, I don't follow the celebrities very much. All that I really know about any of these people is what will show up on the Truth Seeker, or what really happened, or Rents, when I'm looking around for fodder to accentuate whatever it is I'm writing. Otherwise, I don't even pay any attention to the news, and I don't really keep up on these people, and in the way I am woefully uninformed. Now, from what you've told me, the only thing I won't retract is that he's very smart.
I agree with you.
And, yeah, so he's moving up the power grids, and if he's got these kind of associations, well, birds of a feather flock together. Whoever your running fellows are, your rat partners, whoever the individuals are that you're closest with and that you're operational with, that tells the tale. That tells the tale.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
I'm slightly suspicious. Right? Were you trying to be diplomatic with me or something?
No, I wasn't sure. No, it's my Libra nature to try to,
There's 4 planets there. I know what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying. Yeah, so that's where we connect. I've got 3, you've got 4, so we can balance the scales out here pretty easily. So I think that what he is offering, if you listen to what he's talking about with the type of government or governance, he's really kind of bringing out this sort of repackaged version of Fabian socialism with a bit of a new age angle and a little bit of a slight Cockney edge to it.
It's a very glib rap, as I inferred earlier. He's very glib. He's very cavalier.
Yeah.
He's very, he's the kind of person that you used to see like at the Algonquin Club, where intellectuals get together and, they talk for the purpose of talking, for entertainment. They're the kind of people who are forever unaware that waiting for your turn to speak is not really listening.
Right.
And so this I do notice about him, and he seems to be very rehearsed. And my goodness, the words he uses and the rapidity with which he throws them together. He's a performer. But, yeah, so.
Yeah. Hold on a second. I have there we go. Just have a bit of a conflict here. Yeah.
I got a few of those too.
Well, it's not a huge conflict. Hold on one second here. Let me just. I hate to do this. It's just it's kind of a funny thing here.
Hold on, I'm coming.
Okay. So there we go. All right. Let's hope we can just flesh this out here. All right. Boom. Speaking of music, are you making any music these days?
I was disallowed to do recording about 5 years ago.
Oh, really?
And subsequently, I've got 7 or 8 CDs that haven't been recorded yet. And I'm told that I'm going to be, possibly after November ends, I am going to be allowed to go back to doing that. But for the last 5 years, I haven't, or 6 years now, I haven't been, God, my invisible friends, or whoever the emissary is that deals with my specific case, turns things on and turns them off. And then if I try to do anything in a certain area, the reaction can be severe. For instance, twice I had a hard drive fail on me, and it was only the one that had my music on it. Everything else was fine. And or all kinds of other things have gone on that have been completely against my being able to do that and focusing me more on the writing and the rest of that. But hopefully that is going to come back, because that's where my first love is. I love being able to sing songs of praise, and even if they're couched in romantic terms or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's funny how that stuff works. I remember one time back in the 90s, and fancied myself as becoming a DJ. You know, not somebody that talks, but, you know, the spinning records kind of DJ. And I remember investing in, I didn't have a lot of money, but I invested in some equipment. I invested in a mixer, and I hooked up some CDs, and I was doing kind of these ambient sort of groovy things. And the first event that I actually DJ'd at, it was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster. It was part of this benefit for this guy named Winston Tong, who had been a member of the band Tuxedo Moon. And Winston, do you know those guys? Tuxedo.
I've heard the name. I'm not familiar with their work.
And Winston was he was a mess. I mean, he was drunk. He might have been high on smack. I don't know what his scene was, but it was, you know, and they wound up using my equipment because they didn't have the equipment. I'm like, you kidding me? Come on, get it together. So that was like kind of a bummer for my first time out. And then I did it. Then I was Harbin Hot Springs. They asked me to go DJ at one of their nights, one of their DJ nights. And I rented the equipment and speakers, the whole 9 yards, and it was kind of a big deal for me. And I did this incredible DJ set, and nobody was there. Nobody showed up.
Oh, I've had that happen.
You know, and then I got into an accident on the way home. So
yes, that's the kind of thing that I'm up against. You know.
Yeah. And then I talked to a psychic, and she said, "Well, you're not meant to be a live DJ. You could mix it at home and make your own things, but you're not meant to do that." And you know what? She was absolutely right. For whatever reason, it was not meant for me. So I understand what you're talking about, man.
Well, you have to consider that in the really positive sense that implies, because when the masters on the inner planes, God, or whatever, anyone that wants to selectively identify any of this with, when they take an interest in you, you notice all these things happening to you that make no sense. But the point is, they have an interest in you. Their having an interest in you is proof positive that when you find the way to align your will with their will, man, you're home free.
Yeah.
Karma gone, everything gone that is negative. However, if you're like the majority of people and God's paying no attention to you, you're running around doing whatever, you're having all kinds of great luck because certain qualities in this Kali Yuga have a very effective magic to them, then you're in trouble. It would seem the reverse. But the fact of the matter is, you know, it's like what the Bible says, the first shall be last.
Mm-hmm.
And many another thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a phrase that I love. I picked it up from this guy who wrote a couple books. I don't know what happened to him. His name was Robert Augustus Masters. And he wrote a book called Love Shall Also Weep. Great book. Anyway, one of his sayings was, the expression of essence is the art of non-doing. And when I heard that, it was like, to me, that was a total grok moment. And when you are really intending to do what you're supposed to do, it's effortless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get in a groove, so to speak.
Well,
I want to digress here just for a minute. Are you aware that the Muslims, speaking of Solomon's Temple and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, are you aware that it was, according to the Muslims, it never was a temple. It was built to worship the Prophet. However, it was the place where God gave the powers to rule over humans and jinns. And they are very much into this thing about controlling the demonic or elemental side of things for their profit here on the material plane. And that's what a lot of that hocus pocus is all about behind the scenes.
Interesting. I did not know that. So they are obviously aware of some kind of otherworldly agency. Yeah, I mean, part of I guess the denouement moment of the Hajj is when they throw stones at shaitan, right? Whatever shaitan is, shaitan in their cosmology. Have you ever been to Mecca?
Oh God, no. I did live with and study with a Sufi teacher, Guru Mahayadin Bawa, for a couple of years. But then I went my own way, and when asked about me later, he said, "Oh, he'll be fine. He's just taking another path." But so I do have a certain familiarity with the Muslim tradition, as I do with most of them actually, because I've given every one of them just about, except Judaism, which is basically the same as Satanism as far as I'm concerned. But all the rest of them, I've put some time into them. But then I got to the point where I thought they're all the same. It's just the same thing with alchemy. You look at alchemy and you look at yoga, and you've got the different stars, the internals. You've got the chakras, and then in the alchemical traditions, you can find all of those same things referenced under different names. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything. Mercury, sulfur, salt, the three gunas. Well, those are also the ingredients that the alchemist works with, and they're also, referred to states of action. I mean, and so after a while, and of course, psychedelics had a lot to do with this. It didn't matter what I read. It didn't matter what direction I went in. It all came down to the same thing. And so now I just, I keep my head empty, and I keep it focused at a particular level or above. And so anyone who drops in has to be resonant with that particular thing. And I get lots of drop-ins. So my days are pretty exciting, which is one of the reasons that I can sit alone in this room, as I have for the most part of 14 years, although that will change now come spring.
Do you want to talk about that? Do you want to share your plans at all?
I can a little bit. First let me preface it by saying you had done a reading for me about a few weeks ago concerning October and November, and you said, "God, I'm surprised you're not dead." And I was really going through some stuff, and I'm so glad that I heard what I heard, because I made some very serious adjustments after that. I had stopped smoking, but then I picked it up again for a couple of weeks, but then I slammed it down again, and that's been gone for a while. And all kinds of other things that I just do not, I don't touch a drink. I'm not taking any chemicals of any kind. I'm keeping my mind completely open to the interplay of these forces and what the most optimistic outcome of it might be, because I recognize in astrology that it's not like there are any really bad aspects. They all exist in order to put you in a certain situation where you have the option to move in a couple of different directions. But most people don't make the right choice, and that's why they are considered bad aspects, because they do drive you in a direction, unless you're conscious, that you would not otherwise go if you knew better. Mm-hmm. So I'm here in that state now, and I realize I'm being prepared for some things, because this seems like it's going to remain pretty consistent with me, except that I do expect that I will take psychedelic shit again in my life. But anyway, my relationship of 14 years is coming to an end, very amicably, I might say. So most days I don't even notice that it is doing that. I mean, everything's very friendly and very wonderful. But God brought me together with this person. The whole manner in which we met was just completely scripted by the cosmos. I mean, there's no way that it could have been anything else. And then I was swept over here, and we have so very little in common on the level of the work that I do, but, get along very well on the other end. And she's very apprehensive of the possible trouble I can bring upon the family here because of the things I write. She does not understand the things that I write, nor does she understand how so many people can be so impressed with my work. So we have come to the decision to go different ways. Then, boom, out of the blue, this lady got in touch with me, and she said, "I found somewhere for you to go." And it's about 800 kilometers from here. And I went over there to visit the fellow, and it was totally remarkable. There was this amazing person who's building this whole apartment for me. He hardly even knows me, and he's putting it all together for me. And I told him I wouldn't come till spring. He said, perfectly fine. He's investing, he has some money. And he's doing all this really cool stuff for me. It doesn't make any sense that someone would do something like that. So that's my next step. And I've got a friend who's a media figure in Berlin. He's a newscaster. And he is looking around for me for various booking agents, because come spring, it is my intention to travel to various cities in Europe and lecture on metaphysics and how they play into present-day circumstances, and how one can adjust oneself to maximize one's positive potential in this respect. And of course, I will pull in all manner of different things with that. Consonant with that, I was also thinking of, once I'm out of here, advertising for musicians. And maybe I can combine the two things together, do the lecture, and then afterwards a musical performance, or move from one venue to another venue after the lecture, and do a musical performance. But anyway, that's our, make plans, God laughs. But that seems to be what has come into my mind, and where I have been influenced toward doing. And if it doesn't happen, but that seems to be what's going on at the moment.
Well, that sounds great, and you should bring me along on tour. I could be your astrological wingman.
I wouldn't mind at all. If that happens, I'll certainly invite you. We'll see how it goes. I'm assured of getting a pretty good audience, simply because I have so many readers here in Europe. Mm-hmm. And, I watch them streaming down when I look at my counter most days. I don't have the amount of readers I used to have, because I purposely weeded out a great many people that I consider fair weather friends, glad-handers, individuals who will turn on the dime on you. I've had some very unfortunate experiences lately with readers and people close to me who have been a big help to me, who are actually being paid not to have anything more to do with me. Being paid money to cease assisting me. And so, it's getting a little bit dramatic. And now I just heard from this friend of mine who has Jesus Christ for a boyfriend. I find that amusing. She's a great lady. And she's informed me about all this stuff going on the internet about me, where people are ratcheting up discussion modes concerning me, and no doubt the negative will come in, and they're going to challenge my ideas and the things that I express, because they really want to get this idea out that it's the Vatican really that's behind all this nonsense. And it's really like a selection of all kinds of different people, and not just the Israelis and this and that and the rest of the things. And anyway, they want to muddy the waters, is basically what it is. Mm-hmm. See, but I never go to these places, and I never read what these people say about me anyway, except on very rare occasions. Once every couple of months, I'll go over to Google, and I'll travel around. That's when I find one or two things. There's not that much out there on a negative end, but I just find that I'm not really interested in that. I say what I say, and people can take it or leave it. If someone needs an explanation or wants to understand how I came to my conclusions, I'm able to break that down for them. And I'm absolutely certain of some of the things I say, so I brook no argument with it. I will just say, well, we'll agree to disagree, and you believe as you like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I haven't gotten into the same territory yet, but I could certainly see how that would occur. Everybody, just like, you have these various, factions doing this infighting, you also have various sorts of ideologies or ideas about who's doing what, doing this infighting as well. And that is kind of an ideological rift, an ideological sort of land grab at the same time. And it's fascinating to see that take place, to see that occur. So I think the two are mirroring one another.
Yeah, well, I see the cosmos as having a hand in as the basis for his teachings, but then goes on for decades of lessons about esoteric astrology and all these other things that interact back and forth. And Paul Foster Case, who founded it, and M. Davies, his disciple, are two of the most lucid writers and most informed writers on things metaphysical and occult, hermetic that I have ever come across. Some of the stories and tales that you get in these lessons, which only cost I think about $10 a month, and you get 4 of them a month. Some of the things I've never seen anywhere else, and they're just flat out amazing. And there's one thing that I remember reading in the lessons. It went, everything that happens in your life, no matter how seemingly insignificant, is a special dealing of God with your soul. So I try to see everything happening as having God's hand in it. I also see that the devil works for God. The devil is God's prosecutor. So how better to be the prosecutor than to actually assist all the evil ones in everything they do, and at the same time gather all the evidence that is necessary against them. And because of this, I see everything is under control. I see the cosmos of God as always being preeminent, always being more powerful. In fact, the spiritual sun, referred to as the power of God, never reaches its zenith. In other words, there's always more power. I think Swedenborg actually said that. I think there's always more power in reserve than there is in application. Mm-hmm. Always. And anytime God wants to come, with his little finger, he could wipe all of the armies of the world out with absolutely no problem whatsoever. In fact, they wouldn't be alive without him in the first place. It is his ceaseless meditation upon existence that allows all of us to be in a kinetic vibrationary mode. So now the power is shifting. And this is another thing that's shaking these guys up in the background. They are losing their grip on the controls, because God is gradually turning the power over to the other individuals that he prefers to have it seated with. And they're only retaining their power for the purpose of demonstration to show what, real feckless morons they are. And God help them, and, all compassion possible. Hopefully they will turn away from their evil deeds while there is still time. Where there's life, there is hope. But should they not do that, then perdition awaits in any direction they walk in.
Mm-hmm. What's your take or feelings? Really basic, fundamental question. I don't call Jesus Christ Jesus. I call him Sananda Emmanuel. What is your take on the individual, historically, mythically, as a living force and presence in your life? I mean, it's a big question.
Well, I don't really have, per se, an interaction with Jesus. I never have had through my whole life. Mm-hmm. Although, strangely enough, I have had face-to-face contacts with Ganesha, Amitabha Buddha, Lord Vivasam, the sun regent, the sun god, and others, Lady Tara, Lady Nature. I have had personal, many times, interactions. I'll have to defer a little bit with Amitabha because he comes in through my subconscious and brings things up to my attention, and I'm not always sure they're coming from him or not, but he's very active in my existence too. But Jesus Christ, no. But as far as his existence and stuff and the relationship of it to me, I quote him more than anyone else. Did he exist? I am certain. Some say he was Apollonius of Tyana. I am certain he existed in some way, shape, or form, and that out of that teaching that went through his disciples came all of, the stuff of the Piscean age, which is now passing.
Right.
And I believe him to be a sun god, but he doesn't need to have been the historical Jesus. Now, when they find there is no historical Jesus, as they have, then for many people that just reaffirms their atheism and also sows confusion in the ranks. I am quite certain there was someone like Jesus Christ. There have been on any number of occasions. And as Christ said, greater things shall you do than I have done, because I go now unto my Father. And so Jesus was a man. Mm-hmm. Christ consciousness. Christ is a state of being. So any number of people have achieved Christ consciousness since, and they are living emblematic proof of the fact that there was some version of this phenomenon known as Jesus Christ. There's just too much there referencing back, and too much that's correct and righteous and all to the good about the whole tale. And as you look at the tale, you could see how it matches up with ancient tales that go way back, the sacrifice of God, the God sacrificing, and et cetera. We also see it with Krishna, and we see the interesting parallel between Christ and Krishna, how those two words connect so well. And if you read the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus or any number of other more arcane texts, you find the 18 years that Jesus was gone. He spent in India, meeting with wise men, and no doubt, receiving all kinds of teachings and having his chakras open and all the different things he did before he went on his 2-year preaching cruise.
In all your travels and journeys, have you ever run across Benjamin Creme?
Creme.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy. I have. I put him in the same area as Fulford and what's that other? David Wilcox. He says certain things. He's the guy with the Maitreya thing, right?
That's right.
And yeah, okay. Whenever I see too much grandstanding, no matter what it is, there's certain things I look for in sources of information. This is one reason I just nearly despise Eckhart Tolle. And I think anybody, if they just look at a picture of him and see how his nostrils are placed, they'll get an idea of the kind of person he is. But I've been given personal tales about Eckhart Tolle where, he's walked out with huge bags of cash from lectures he gave. This one person from Scotland told me he was there and observed this thing. And he charges obscene amounts of money for people to come hear him speak, hundreds of dollars, and they put celebrities all in the front rows. This, to me, is totally indicative of a false prophet and a person lying for material gain. You don't charge for what is priceless. People want to donate, okay, just fine, all right? You'll always meet your expenses. But if you start charging for it, you've already put a price on it. You have therefore diminished the authenticity of it. And even if you say it, the power behind your saying it will not accompany the words, which is why 9 out of 10 people can say the same thing and there's no juice there. And then one person can say exactly the same thing and it's got juice. And the juice is the important thing. If you ain't got the juice, well, you ain't worth the squeeze.
I like that.
Yeah. So as far as that goes, Benjamin Creme is a bit of a showman. That is my take on him. I do not know him well enough to actually be able to judge his integrity in terms of his relationship. Just as that Pleiades guy, Billy Meyer, or any number of other people, I don't know them intimately enough to actually pass judgment. But Fulford is crazy. He's totally disinfo, and he says the most outrageous and crazy shit. Wilcox is, he's one of those self-love narcissist types. And like Andrew Cohen, any number of people out there who are running around, they're getting money, they're doing real well, selling their particular brand of bullshit. So, as I say, I'm not really in a position to judge these people, but I guess I do. And but Creme just didn't attract my interest to the point that I really wanted to look any further. So you were going to say something?
Well, yeah, the reason I brought him up is because he taps into that same kind of symbolism and ideology about the Christ and the Christ energy, right? And so I just thought that maybe you would have crossed paths at some point, and
I have run across him, yes. I've had people speak well of him, and I've had people not speak well of him too.
Really fascinating. People can actually look this up if they're listening to this radio broadcast. You can type into your Google search bar Maitreya and Obama, and you'll find some very interesting results and pictures. Have you done that?
You can also plug in even if you're not listening. So.
Have you done that before? Have you looked at that?
Maitreya and Obama?
Yeah.
No, I haven't done that, but I will. But I do do interesting word associations sometimes and see what comes up. And might you be surprised. I tell you, people do not realize the value of search engines. I mean, all kinds of people will come to my sites and never even bother to use a search engine. It's like, or they'll ask me questions that are easily answerable on the web, and then when I say to them, hey, go use the search engine, so that they get all offended and start calling me names, diminishing me, and because I don't want to be their research assistant. But I mean, if you know how to use a search engine, and if you're diligent, patient and open-minded, good God, you can find almost anything out.
Well, as it relates to Maitreya and Obama, there, of course, the famous pictures of Maitreya are him in Kenya, and the Kenyan, yes, the Kenyan people are bowing down to him like a god, and
no kidding.
Yeah, it would actually slightly correspond to the time where Obama would have been out and about and available to do this kind of traveling, and then there's kind of a side-by-side pictographic forensics of Maitreya and Obama, and they actually look a lot alike. So then check this out, right? Then when Obama is in Oslo to receive his Nobel Peace Prize, right? Which is an absolute joke, but
good God.
But they have this weird blue spiral that occurs at the same time, and you can go on the internet and you can see the coordinates and the time for all that stuff. But that blue spiral is actually something that Creme and his foundation has talked about as a sign of the coming of the Maitreya. So here we have Obama getting his Nobel, the blue spiral. Then we have Maitreya in Kenya, Obama, the Kenyan connection. It's interesting. It's an interesting little rabbit hole to dive into.
Well, as you have brought various things to light now concerning Crumb, I'll go and give him another look-see. Because, what he's saying, these things sound accurate, but keep in mind that certain things having to do with events yet to occur, or events that have occurred, or insights that are shared by a number of people, and then grant authenticity to each of them by the fact that there's a complicity of understanding or awareness between all of them. That can be accessed by anyone with the gifts or the talents, be they very good or very evil. And even the devil can quote scripture. So, in other words, the fact that a person may be plugged into certain realities or things coming down, that doesn't really mean anything. What matters is their relationship to it and what their intentions are. And are they collecting a whole lot of money behind what they're doing? Are they making themselves a wide presence? Is there anything in their personal life that is suggestive of something other than the things that they teach? These are all things that need to be kept in mind. And, you see what I'm saying. I mean, certainly, like in my own case, there are many people that can look at me as being questionable simply because I've gotten high a great deal, and I have, on occasion, behaved very recklessly. But I've had very good reasons for both of those things, and I don't apologize to anybody for any of it. And the fact that I am able to move like someone 30 years my junior and filled with abundant energy, and can really whirl and twirl around and keep going all day long and really be on the up and up, sort of speaks to what the effects of these psychedelics and things have been on me. And I say, the proof is the pudding. So people, they need to look a little deeper and see the what's what that's going on there. I mean, I still hear from people, or they post about me, I am working for the evil one, and nothing I say is true, and yabba, 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 this and that, and this and that. However, I think my life pretty much stays where my attention is all the time, and I know where my attention is at, and so I don't really concern myself with the opinions that certain people have of me. But see, this extends to everyone, and I mean, the bigger presence you have, like Benjamin Creme, well, then, I'll kinds of negativity may be associated as well. I'll go give him an impartial look. But it seems to me that I did do this. So we'll see.
Are you there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. You kind of dropped out for a second there. How's the book doing? Are you getting much response from the book?
Well, at first, a number of people ordered the book, and I have yet to send to the guy compiling the book the picture for the back page, a wrap for the back page, and add in the name of Neil, who was kind enough to do the final proofing for me. And once I've done that, then the print version will come out. So there's a hiatus going on there. Once again, I've been arrested. I've been stopped from what I was doing because it has to occur at a certain time, but that will be quite soon. And when that happens, then I don't know. The book is never going to, well, not say never, but in the moment, unlikely to gain a great deal of circulation, given the subject matter, and may well get thrown off of Amazon once they find out what I'm talking about. But we shall see how that goes. I'll probably go to Lulu too and put it up there, and yeah, we'll see.
What's the vibe there in your part of the world like for Halloween? What's it feel like over there?
It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
No, their version of Halloween is Carnival, and that occurs at the same time as Mardi Gras, or around that time, occurs in New Orleans. And that's a 2 or 3, or actually 2-week thing, I think, where they all dress up in costumes and run around and act wild. And if you go places like Basel or some of these cities, you'll see like hundreds of men dressed up as women with big tits, marching, just like military soldiers down the street, playing on instruments, or dressed up as all kinds of other things. And it is so surreal and overwhelming that you suddenly feel like you're on LSD just watching. I mean, certainly I did the one time that I was there and observing it. But as far as Halloween goes, this is Halloween. There will be no trick-or-treaters. There will be nobody knocking on the door. There just isn't. There's no recognition for it here at all.
Yeah, it's amazing just how prominent and powerful it's become in this country. It's like
economically driven.
Absolutely, yeah. And I thought also probably esoterically and satanically driven at the same time, no doubt.
Evil.
Go ahead.
Evil is significantly rooted in the United States. Here, it's more laid back. You understand a lot of the evil, maybe all of it, that operates in America was sent there by Europe, okay? But the thing is, the Europeans have been at it for hundreds and hundreds of years. The Americans have not been at it so long. The Americans are very reckless, and their can-do attitude is often very much an expression of overconfidence. And so the Europeans know what happens when you go too far. They remember the French Revolution. They know the kind of things when the public just so. They are not on the same page as the Americans are, ratcheting up for all of this police state stuff, which they're doing.
Right.
Now I expect there may be some amount of it here to some degree. But basically, Europe, the police basically, too, everyone I've ever run into are quite friendly. Don't act like police at all. It's amazing, to tell you the truth. I know you can run into bad ones, as you can run into anywhere, but my personal experience has been that it's a whole other ballgame here.
Yeah, unfortunately, the police in the United States have taken a really bad turn, and they are. I personally think that steroid use is rampant throughout many police departments. You get these people that are they're not even cops anymore. They're like these police officers. They're huge, almost like football players, and they're enormous. Viz, they're enormous. They hire for size, and that size gets beefed up. And when you see the rampant use of tasers and lack of restraint, when it comes
shooting people, unarmed people, they just shot this guy in his condo because he was having a fight with his girlfriend.
Right.
They just drove up, shot him, and then slammed this armored vehicle into his doorway.
Right.
I didn't do anything, wasn't threatening them or anything else. I mean, they cage your kids under the age of 10.
Yeah.
So steroids, that accounts for it's really great.
Yeah, I think it has to be factored into this. And there's also been this sort of transfusion, for lack of a better term, of these security and peacekeeping techniques which are being brought over from Israel to the United States. And you know, what they'll do is they'll fly police chiefs or the heads of sheriff's departments, and they'll go over there and they'll do seminars and all that stuff, right? I mean, so that, I believe, is probably paid for by the grants that the Department of Homeland Security have been giving police departments for the last really 10 years. I mean, they did
seminars.
Yeah, seminar stuff. Plus, they were able to buy massive weapons. They were able to buy tanks and all this crazy shit that they never needed ever before. And you add it all up with steroids and, you know, sort of the IDF sort of tactics, and then you have the expanded arsenal and, you know, tanks, and then there you go. I mean, that's the transformation of the police force into a police state. And what these guys don't realize is that they are planned obsolescence. In 15 to 20 years, I could easily see most of the security and the policing in this country done by, and this sounds crazy, but done by robots. That's happening. That's going to come.
Oh, yeah, they're definitely on that.
Yeah, and these guys, you know, who might even retain a shred of conscience, even though it's been totally distorted through training, indoctrination, and steroids, they'll be gone because the machines will have no conscience. And in fact,
not going to get that far.
Well, I
don't think so.
Yeah, I think it will. Because I think the robotics piece is taking off in a big way. Now, maybe what you're talking about with this awakening and this counterbalance force, maybe that comes into play and keeps everything at bay and doesn't advance that far. But I also think that that as a potential reality, that this clearly exists, and clearly that is what they're headed towards. So we'll see how that plays out.
Let me give you a bit of a mental graphic here. At any station or place where a person is standing, any number of roads extend out from where they are standing or while they're in motion. There are side trips. There are all kinds of ways to go in other directions. These are always present in a sort of future exit way, as you see on the highway sometimes. So, everything, once again, going back to my personal template for the whole thing, God is in charge. God is absolutely, unequivocally, and completely in charge. And everything that is allowed that goes on is for the purpose of demonstration, for education, because that's why you're born in a physical body in the first place, to learn stuff. And if you learn the wrong stuff, you have to keep coming back until you unlearn it and you learn the right stuff. You learn the right stuff, you're on your way, and continue and continue and continue. So, it may well be, okay, on the planet as well. There are different paths that come out of different nations and different changes in power and different changes in governments and styles of government and all these different kinds of things. So it could well be that absolute police state will exist somewhere, well, like it does in Myanmar, or as one might say it does in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, or different places like that. Potentially, anyway, it can immediately begin to act that way. At the same time, there will always be other places, especially these days, where that is not happening. So any person with any real intelligence or awareness will look at the signs going on around them, and they will migrate, where possible, to somewhere other than the place where this is taking place. Surely, I mean, right now, this very moment, there are horrific things taking place in people's lives, in hundreds, thousands of people's lives. Terrible things are occurring of which we know nothing, all around the globe. At the same time, some very, very good things are happening to people. Their whole lives are being changed in this very moment. Other people are becoming aware. Something has happened that has set off the process, and they're going, oh my God, I never knew it. And for each individual in their individual destiny, as like steps on a ladder or going up a spiral staircase, they have the opportunity to continue climbing toward the light, or if the light becomes too bright for them, then like in Tibet, Book of the Dead, they look off to the side and they see a light that's less bright, and they move in that direction, and with that comes a certain amount of illusion. And as you continue in that direction, so consider the other as a reflection of the real light, and then that's the moon, and the moon, lunacy. Well, then more and more illusion gets spun, and then that person winds up in a sort of a existential swamp or an entropic situation, and then death has to come and free them. But I really believe it's all an individual choice. If you align yourself with God, nothing's going to touch you unless God says so. Unless God says so. And that is all dependent on your faith. To the degree of your faith, so it is given to you. And life is here to test us, and certainly has happened in my case, to prove to us the value and power of faith. And when our faith is rooted in us, and we know that God is there, whether we can see Him, whether He seems to have abandoned or left us, au contraire. God is very much there all the time, always, if God has ever been there in the first place. You wouldn't be alive if God wasn't there in some way to begin with. You wouldn't be drawing breath. And so this is the thing that people need to focus on. Not the what ifs, not it's like, oh my God, here comes the bad guys, because the bad guys are nothing but players, and they're all being manipulated for the purpose of demonstration. The important thing is for an individual to get right with their Creator, to seek their Creator out relentlessly, to do it all day long, if time your mind can be brought back to it rigorously, focused, press with great intensity, to strive until contact is made. And it will. And once contact is made, then what happens is like there's a tiny opening in the mind, and a small amount of light is coming through. Then one has to pound away at the borders of that light until the light increases in volume coming through, and boom, at a certain point, one is illuminated. This is the result of that process. And if one wants it, one can have it. Of course, there's a lot of work. And of course, the external world is going to come in and hammer on you and try to do everything it can to distract you, because that's how you separate the sincere from the insincere. And this is how you get people in places of importance, making a whole lot of money talking about the truth. I don't want to name names, but there are some very powerful people out there, alternative media individuals, who seem to be on the right side of everything and doing really, really good work, okay, but they've reached their plateau. They're at their Peter principle. This is where they decided to get off and start to pontificate with whatever limited information they have. But as far as I'm concerned, we need to keep on going and never give up.
Amen to that, brother. I'm with you. I mean, what's the alternative?
Yeah, exactly. Well, there are a whole bunch of alternatives. None of them good.
None of them offer a whole lot of promise. No, go ahead.
Well, there's the thing about insanity. Look at all these people on the planet. They're pursuing wealth. They're pursuing sex. They're pursuing power. They're pursuing all these different things. First of all, God has control of every one of these things. And if you want these things, go ask God. He'll give them to you, if only to teach you a lesson about certain things. God already possesses all of these things and the means. Why go to the bad guy to get your hands on them, operate in a compromising fashion, and do all kinds of wrong things, ensnaring yourself in terrible karma in order to achieve something that isn't even worth having? Because the only difference between where you're going to be and where you are before you start is there's going to be a lot more flies and mosquitoes around you than there were before. And if you go and pursue God, well, God has not only all of these material riches and things, He's got all the other stuff. He's got all that esoteric stuff, all the stuff that's really worth having. My good God, people have any idea of what
Yeah.
They'd be about to business.
Well, using this kind of metric in your own sort of inner vision, put your binoculars on. What do you see happening over the course of the next 6 months?
Okay, first of all, I have no idea. As I say now, it can go different ways, okay? The reason a whole lot of things haven't happened yet is because there's all kinds of things going on behind the scenes, and never underestimate the degree to which the cosmos is also involved, and what the cosmos' will and demands are from whatever the conclusions in the various places are. I think very much they are working very hard on a major false flag. If that comes to pass, well, then it's hard to say, because it depends on the level of awakening in the general public. It depends on how many people look and say, oh, here's just more bullshit, and they're the guys that are doing it, or they might get caught. They might get caught doing it. Now, remember, there are many, many people in the military who know what's going on. Mm-hmm. There are many people high up in the ranks who are dragging their feet or purposely not doing what they're supposed to be doing in order to retard certain things. There's all this kind of stuff going on in the background, so it's nearly impossible to predict this kind of thing. But they are certainly working on that. They certainly intend it. And they're running scared. The rich have stolen so much, and they cannot stop themselves from stealing more. So their first thought has to be protection. They have to be able to protect themselves. And what that means is they have to oppress the public. They have to beat the public into a state of willingness. And they do it economically. They do it through threat of palpable threat on their streets, through their media, through fear-mongering of all these, Halloween characters that don't really exist as boogeymans. So, I don't know. I personally, I feel very, very optimistic. I feel like they're going to shoot themselves in the foot. This is what I see happening. I see them attempting a number of things, and everything they do turning against them. Mm-hmm. For instance, Obamacare. This has to be the biggest mistake these guys ever made. It don't work. It's not going to work. This is so powerful and so negative for this whole administration that the fallout from this is going to be immense. It hasn't even started yet. People's premiums and all the lies he told in today's Petri dish, I put a link in, or all the deals that, I don't know if you know this, but Obama gave whole states like Massachusetts a deference so that they didn't even have to engage in Obamacare because of a deal they cut before Obamacare went into use.
Sorry about that. We had a bit of an audio glitch. Of course, it's Mercury Retrograde. I stopped the visible interview to just chime in and say goodbye and thank you. And as a result of that, the recording wanted to play over again. So I'm going to try to find it where it left off and end the show with it on the broadcast side. Thanks again. See you on Monday. This is Robert.